Hi guys, welcome back. Right, I've knocked off for the year now, so I can finally get round to sorting out some of the chores and sort out some of my own gear. Obviously, it doesn't pay the bills working on your own stuff. So if you've watched any of the videos previously, you'll most likely have seen the Anschutz. Now, I've had this Anschutz for probably six and a half years, something like that now, I should think. It was bought new by me back then. It was originally a 6 foot-pound, 10 metre gun, so designed for indoor shooting. I mentioned in the last video that I was going to do a stock swap. Now, I do have a few different stocks for this. Of course, it is my job, but all of the stocks that I own are just made out of odds and ends, remnants, odds and ends of laminate and things like that. So even with this one, the grip, the chassis portion, the cheek piece are all made from different blanks of the red and black laminate, so they're all a slightly different shade. The rail in it, that was pre-used on other stuff. The butt hook's sort of cobbled together, but it looks pretty cool. It looks good on film, and it's got an awful lot of adjustability. So where I've gone from shooting it prone off of the deck to shooting off of the bench with the bipod, there's a lot of modularity between it. And if I wanted to sort of chop and change grips and things, this modular layout of stock works very well. Now, I've just managed to reacquire a stock that I built probably 5 years ago now, and it was actually a Walther LG 300 chassis, which is the metal Aliatech chassis. I managed to mill it all out and make it fit the action of the Anschutz. Now, they are very dissimilar in terms of the block width and things like that, so it certainly wasn't a straight swap. Most people said it would never happen, it wouldn't go together, but sure enough, I managed to build it. Unfortunately, I sold it after a couple of years. I shot a full season with it, shot it at HFT Worlds, and ended up flogging it. Was offered good money for it, and I've just managed to reacquire it back again. I've had to do a little bit of remedial work to put it back together. Every single nut, bolt, fixing on it was trashed and chewed up. It's obviously had quite a hard life since it left me, but right, so there she is. It's got my dummy action in it at the moment. A lot of people have asked me about this action. I regularly use it on the Facebook page and things for mocking up and stock building. This action was actually given to me by Anschutz. It was from bits from their scrap bin, but it's been an absolute godsend in the workshop because it's meant that I haven't had to use my other action and get it all manky, and that's one of the reasons why the other one is quite as crispy as it is now. A good few years before I got this one, I was using the other one almost weekly, doing sort of customer stock builds. Hence why the serial number's ground off of it, and then the little F proof mark on the side here, it's not stolen. It was actually given to me by the factory. Now, this chassis in front of you here actually originally belongs to a Walther LG 300 protouch, so another indoor shooting rifle, another 10 metre gun. I actually prefer the look and the layout of this Walther chassis than I do, of course, Anschutz do one of their own design, but it's got a bit of a weird dog leg in the back here. And I much preferred the look and the layout of the Walther one, so a bit of milling later, and sure enough, the two were then mated together. If you follow my Facebook page, you may well have seen a few years back when I started making all these carbon fibre parts. Now, this was an absolute nightmare. This is all made from layers of pre-preg carbon. The carbon was all stacked up in layers and wrapped around a form, and then I taped all around it and had to bake it in the oven to cure that. This is holding up pretty well, actually, considering I haven't seen it for at least 4.5 years. Cheek piece is the same. The lacquer's getting a little bit crispy on here. I really need to strip this cheek piece down and probably re-lacquer that. There's a few nuts and bolts missing from when it originally left me. The grip's been changed. I do actually quite like this grip. I don't know if it's a dip or, well, I guess it is a dip. I don't think it's been wrapped or anything like that, but that was a black or grey laminate grip under there. Now it's been carbon dipped. Looks pretty nice, so I'll probably leave that on there for the meantime, although strangely it doesn't quite fit now. I'm not really enjoying the longer trigger reach that I used to shoot, so I'll probably end up making a new grip and then a matching cheek piece for this down the line. But what we'll do now, we'll get the red one stripped down. I want to see if we can get the butt hook onto here. I'll probably then see if we can get the little monopod that I've made on the back there as well. The barrel band up the front, there's a few bits missing from that. I have a locating bush for the barrel band at the front which is gone, so I've got to fashion a new one of those, and I had to strip the paint off of it because it was really crispy, so that's drying at the moment. But what I want to do, we'll whip this one apart and then we'll start pulling the red one apart and we'll make the two together. before I do that, I thought I'd show you this one. So this is one of my other HFT stocks. I used this one for a little while on the Anschutz. Now this was a bit of a beast. Again, this was built just as a sort of a showpiece really for the workshop. Obviously cheek's not on it at the moment, but again, rail up front of it, offset grip. You've got sort of 2 thumb up positions and a thumb through on here. Now, I think maybe in the spring we'll start using this again on the channel when we do some more testing and things like that. Maybe we'll swap over to this one for a little while when we actually start shooting a bit of HFT again. But with the modular nature of the Alitech chassis, I can swap bits around. It's far easier to sort of cobble the bipods on. And this is actually quite a bit heavier than the old Alitech chassis. So the one that you've just seen, the Walther Alitech chassis, actually weighs, when these are built up, this is one of the blue club chassis, the club and junior stock, and this is what most of the 9015s originally came into the country with. It was cheaper to buy them in the club stocked layout, so complete gun with the factory stock on it, than it was at the time to buy it as an action only. Nowadays, most people tend to buy the actions only. These are not a bad little stock. Actually, a lot of the women that I know shoot these Anschutz stocks and they do very well. The dimensions of these fit most of the ladies pretty well. If you're a big fella or anything like that, you're going to struggle with one of these, and that's why most of them end up in custom stocks or chassis and the like. So, right, let's get that other one apart anyway. Right, so all of my Anschutz custom builds all run on twin fixing bolts. Let's get them out of there quickly. Right, let's pop that out of the way. So that's it off with the 2. I need to give this a quick wipe over with oil. You can see there, look, there's quite a difference in the colour between the top and the bottom where it's been sat in the stock. Now, I only gave this a wipe over a few weeks ago, so I've got some anhydrous lanolin which I like to use on these blocks. Now that's basically oil from sheep's butts. Right, so that's anhydrous lanolin, so that is basically, it's more of a grease. This is what a lot of the factories use to protect their guns when they're building them and in transit. It's a bit goopy. We need to be very careful, don't get that in the vent hole, and then wipe off any excess. But this lanolin, it seems to really get quite absorbed into the actual... Does it get absorbed into the grain of the metal? I'm not sure, but it certainly seems to work very well. This is what a lot of people use restoring old cars, for rust proofing and protecting old cars as well. So it certainly won't do it any damage. A lot of the firearms boys mix this up with things like transmission fluids and stuff like that to make their own waterproofing oils and maintenance sprays and things like that. But I'm not so sure about that, but this will do everything we need it to. Just give it a quick wipe over on this crispy portion of the block and then wipe it back off again. I've also got a special treat for us later on. I've actually got here one of the Anschutz Precise chassis. It's actually a mate of mine, so I've got it here for some work at the moment. Once we've cleared the space out here, I've got everything out of the way, I'll bring that out. We need to be super careful with that because I don't own it. However, I'll show you what I really wanted originally for the Anschutz that I couldn't afford, hence why I ended up doing this Walther conversion. It's an interesting thing, it's a beautiful bit of kit and flipping expensive. Still definitely a bit faded. You can see there's a bit of wear on here, but that was years of using this as the dummy action for building customers' stocks. It certainly took a toll on this action. The front and the rear portions have got different finishes on them as well. This is a much more normal looking anodized finish, and I believe this is called parkerizing or something like that. It's a very different finish. I guess the grades of the alley between the front and the rear portions must be quite different. So okay, so this one actually mounts up slightly differently. I couldn't run this on my twin fixing bolts underneath of this one because of the size and the layout of the chassis. It had to use the side fixings, which is exactly the same arrangement actually as the factory 9015 Alitechs use. So the factory are quite happy to do it, so I thought I'll try it out. I do need to put the old cylinder band back on as well because that actually supports the cylinder. Little shim that sits in the bottom there, that's actually a bit of milk bottle, believe it or not. I put that in there just to stop any damage to the bottom of these blocks. I think while we've got that apart, probably take off the old hamster up front as well. Now this, when this came back to me the other day, all of these fixings are all mucked about with and messed around. None of these fixings are the originals, and all of these bolts are chewed up like a good one. Right, as you can see there, that's the little hamster shell. Now that weighs about 35 grams. It's got a bit of twist to it, but it's super stout. You won't break that. It was surprisingly tough. So I think I might well look at doing some more carbon parts down the line. I've learned a bit more about making the carbon stuff since. Right, that can go in the spares pile. So the chassis itself is in quite good order. There's a few more additional holes on here that I hadn't drilled when it had left me, but the majority of it looks in pretty good order still. It's a little bit crispy on the inside, unfortunately, but luckily you can't really see that. What I have got here, I've got a little section of pick rail, so I'm just going to pop that on up the front, and then we can use this off the bipod as we have been doing so far filming. So pop that on there quickly now. Right, great, so we can probably pop that bipod on there then, and that will stand it up. So this is just one of them knockoff bipods off of eBay, just a 20 quidder. I didn't really anticipate we'd end up shooting off the bipod as much as we are, so I'll probably treat us to a genuine one later in the year. And all these Walther chassis, Walther don't obviously use a little bit of milk carton. They've actually got this really fancy little sort of almost like a stiff rubber sheet that they put in. It's not too dissimilar to this, but that's disappeared, so a little bit of milk bottle can go in there just to act as a little buffer. If I can find one of the little genuine Walther sheets, I'll grab one and swap that over in time. Well, I say that, I'll probably forget and won't bother, but I have every intention of. They just need to be gently nipped up, them side fixings. Right, so there's the old air cylinder bands. Now that is slightly damp still, but we can pop it on. Now I do need to make up a little collar that sits inside of here to centralise the air cylinder in there. Just having it supported at the back's not quite enough on this, so I do need to make up a little bush to sit in there, but I will do that over the little Christmas break. But you can see already that looks pretty cool on there. Right, so that's roughly together now. We've got a huge amount of adjustability on here. Of course, we've got length of pull. We can also angle the butt pad should we need to. There's no offset adjustability on the rear end of this, but to be honest, I don't really need any of that, especially with the little HFT butt hook that I'm just about to put on. The cheek has, of course, got height adjustment. We've also got rollover, so what we can do with that is we can adjust how the cheek piece feels in your face. So with a rollover like this, you can have it more upright to be more aggressive, or you can angle it over slightly to be more comfortable on your face. But of course then we've also got lateral offset adjustment to keep you well centered behind your scope. So you can see we've got a little bit of adjustability if you wanted to angle your butt pad, for instance. For a long while I didn't shoot with butt hooks at all. A lot of the earlier HFT butt hooks were really aggressive on the shoulder, and if you were shooting in a t-shirt or something like that, they would feel flipping horrible. Nowadays we've got some that are far less aggressive, much more all-rounders, and I find that they're just generally that bit nicer to use. A lot of the older ones that we used to use, I always used to feel so tethered behind the gun, and yeah, that's good for consistency, but it's not the most comfortable of things. So certainly these modern butt hooks that are less elaborate with slightly smaller paddles are definitely not a bad option. I'm hoping that I can use some of the parts from one of my Catran butt hooks on here. I think I'm going to be lucky and it'll actually fit straight onto this backing plate, so I won't actually need the backing plate off of the butt hook itself. So where the upright bar has the backing plate that then takes the legs to suit the length of pull adjuster on the Catran, I don't think I need any of that. I may have to think about some colour coding down the line. It sticks out like a sore thumb being silver, but I don't know whether, because of the way that this fits in the chassis here, it's a really tight fit, I don't know whether Cerakoting or anything will add too much thickness. I need to ask a few of the boys and find out, but it'd be nice if I can have these done maybe matte black or something, just to make it all a bit more in keeping. Okay, so this is the butt hook, so that's obviously the paddle section, and then this is the upright bar. That looks like it will fit on there. The actual spacings are close enough for them to go on there. What I'll probably want to do is trim this off, but I'm not going to trim this one, so I'll make up another one of these that's a slightly better size for this back plate, and that'll look pretty cool. Oh, easy, look at that. So we don't need the black backing plate, we can go straight onto here. You can see what I mean now, it sticks out like a sore thumb being silver, so it'd be nice to get that anodised or something, or Cerakoted. Turn that into my shoulder just a little bit. What I do want to do is set this back plate upright, because I've also got the little monopod to go on there, so I don't really want it angled. Right, that's pretty cool. And I've also now got two additional fixing bolt holes down here that I can bolt my little monopod onto, so let's have a little go with that. So I've got a huge range of adjustability in the monopod, and then I've got fine tuning for elevation as well. So the design of that's based on one of my router depth stops. It works very well, so probably going to do some more prototyping and testing with these, and then see if we can get something to market, because it works really well. Right, we'll grab the scope off of the Catran. I've been really enjoying using this little CP for the last sort of year or so. Well, probably not even that long, to be honest. I think I might well end up getting one of the 40mm objective, the new versions of these. I think the 32mm objective certainly suits the little Catran, and I think the 40 would work quite well on here. And with the slightly larger magnification, it's got up to 16 times mag. I think that'll be a bit better, especially if we're running some slugs out to further ranges through the 9015. But get off. Gotcha. So these little West Hunter mounts, they're going. They were more of an experiment really to see if they're any good. And I tell you what, for the 20 quid that they cost, I don't think you'll find a better mount. The tolerances on their mounts are surprisingly good. So I've got to be honest, as much as I like using these Anschutzes and things like that and all the high-end stuff, that little Catran is probably one of my favourite rifles of the last few years for sure. And as much as I've liked this Anschutz, it's never been my favourite of all the guns that I've had. Certainly of my HFT guns, yes, it's a fantastic gun, I really do like it, but it probably isn't necessarily my favourite. I think my favourite's probably still some of my older EV2s that I've had, which have sadly long been sold, but maybe see if I can find another one of those going forward as well. So I've had a few carbine EV2s over the years, and there's just something about them, just not necessarily the best gun. I think probably on paper this is technically the more advanced gun, but there's something about shooting the EV that I really like, just the way that they feel, the way they handle. This is still a fantastic bit of kit. So we're going to carry on with the 9015 for a little while. Certainly going to be doing some more slug testing with this going forward as well. I've also got a couple more barrels, as you've probably seen already. The next video, when we get a decent dry day without too much wind, we've got 3 different barrels to test in here, and I've got a load more Zan slugs. So what we're going to actually do is use the same action, the same ammo, and then we're going to be able to directly test the 3 different barrels side by side to see which of the barrels is the most accurate for the slugs. Now I've also got a Walther barrel, so when we build this up, when it's fully done, we'll have a Walther chassis on it and a Walther barrel in it as well. So quite a lot of Walther parts in this one anyhow. Right, well, we're mostly back together. I've still got a few little bits to do going forward. I'm going to cobble on an HFT 500 trigger guard down here. That'll probably then want sort of colour matching to the rest of it. I need to actually get this out, get it up the farm and get it set up. But you can see now with the modular nature of this, whip off my little monopod, unclip my bipod and put the hamster on, a couple of little butt hook tweaks and changes. You've gone from something you can shoot off of the bench quite happily, shoot it prone, whatever you want to, and then you can go and turn it straight into an all-out HFT gun. So the modular nature of this is definitely a real godsend for this type of shooting that we're doing on the channel. Right, so a good look at this. This is what I've put together with next to no budget. I'm going to go and grab Dave's chassis, which is the Anschutz Precise chassis. I'm going to move all my clutter out the way because we don't own that, so we've got to be super careful with it. And then you'll see what I was hoping to achieve, and I didn't want to spend the money. Right, so this is the Anschutz Precise chassis. Now this whole chassis was milled from a great big billet of alley. It's a fantastic bit of kit, but bloody hell, it's expensive. I think when these were available, these chassis with their grips and stuff on were about £2,000 before you've even thought about adding your fancy FT butt hook, your Rowan and bits and pieces. So as you're looking at this now, it's probably the best part of at least £2,500 worth of stock, let alone the nice action that goes in it. So this chassis has a Zenith tuned 9015 that sits in it, which is a beautiful thing. It shoots really well, it's very, very accurate, and it's just all round a beautiful bit of kit. You've got the Rowan knee riser up the front here. It also has a March 80 mag that Dave uses on this, and that probably puts this whole value of this FT gun up in the region of about 7.5 grand or thereabouts, which is pretty obscene. But before you all ask, yes, he can shoot it. Dave's been AA grade for probably the last 20 years, so he knows how to use it. But it's a beautiful bit of kit, but I certainly couldn't see myself spending this sort of money on a chassis when I can modify the Walther one for not a lot. But I mean, it is absolutely beautiful. It weighs a ton. This actually probably weighs more than the Catran does, just in the chassis and the butt hook on here. I built this grip set a while back. It's come back in now. It's got a few dings and bashes. It's used every weekend in competition. I'm going to be doing a few different tweaks to the grip. I'm actually going to make a fresh grip for it and a slightly revised cheek piece profile for this one. But it is an absolute beast. It's, again, designed primarily for indoor shooting, designed for 10-meter shooting. The back end of this has actually got quite a lot of offset. It's effectively cast off, so the back end of this is way offset to the right. It meant that I had to do quite a lot of additional work to bring the cheek piece back past the centre line to shoot with a scope. Not necessarily the best thing really to convert into an FT gun or an HFT gun from its 10-meter spec, but look at that, what an absolute beauty. I need to try and prop this up safely, and I'll get you a little pan around it. Right, and then we're back with my poverty spec version. Now, of course, this was just built from odds and ends. Doesn't really owe me a lot of money, but the sort of shooting that we're doing, especially on the farm, scrabbling about, this will do us very well going through next year. Now, I do really want to say a massive thank you, guys, to all of you that are watching the videos and have subscribed. The channel's not even a year old yet, and it seems to have grown at quite a rate. It's really quite blown my mind. Going forward for next year, I've got some mad stuff to bring to the channel, and I'm actually going to start setting aside a little time each week to actually go and try and get stuff filmed for you. So thank you all very much indeed, and I guess I'll catch you next year.